Welcome everybody into the Real Golf Masters preview. I'm Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net, and I'm joined by the guys of Real Golf Radio, Brian Taylor and Bob Casper, who are in Augusta, Georgia, who are getting to take in the Masters in person, and I'm extremely jealous, but I welcome them into our Google Hangout, and all of you out there in the Hangout world who are going to join us for the next half hour as we preview the 2014 Masters. Bob and Brian, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
First of all, I'd love to get a sense of the vibe down in Augusta. There's a lot of different things going on in this tournament this year than years past. There's no Tiger Woods for the first time in 20 years. There's no Eisenhower tree on the 17th hole. And this is probably as wide open of a championship as we've probably seen in a quarter of a century. So from 3 days on the grounds, what's your sense of what you're seeing out there and what's in store for us for the rest of the week?
Well, I'll start off, I guess, Bob. It's definitely different. I think all the players have talked as much about the fact that it is a little awkward, was Phil's quote, about not having Tiger Woods in the field. But I'll tell you what, the one thing about the Masters is it transcends any player. So it's gone through some of the best players in history, and Tiger Woods certainly is one of those. But it's unfortunate, especially for the fans, to not have Tiger here. It's weird after 20-some years of him being here for every single Masters. But the golf course is really what people come to see. The event is fantastic, and I think it's going to produce a great champion, great drama down the stretch, you know, even without Tiger Woods. Bob and I had an opportunity on Monday to go out to 17, and it was a little weird, huh, to see 17 without the tree.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We went out to watch Mike Weir and Jason Day play a few holes, and when we got to 17, it looked like there was never ever a tree there. Beautiful manicured fairway, the whole 9 yards. And the only way we knew there was a tree there is because they had taken a pine cone and put it out in the fairway in the spot where the tree was. So that was really weird. Then we had a chance to walk down to the green, the 16th green, and then also the 17th tee to look back up the fairway at the tee shot, and it looked a little weird not having something there as far as the tree is concerned.
Now, Billy Payne had his press conference today, kind of give State of the Masters press conference, so to speak, and he kind of indicated that they're not sure what the club's going to do in terms of whether or not they're going to replace the Eisenhower tree or they may move it somewhere else down the hole or have nothing there altogether. What do you guys ultimately think is going to happen on the 17th hole?
Well, I don't know necessarily. It's pretty tough to take, you know, a tree that's been there that long and replace it. You really can't do that because it's going to take a tree another 30 or 40 or 50 years to even grow back to where that one is. Excuse me. But I think, you know, they may do something with adding some more pine trees in there. They may do something to remember it with a plaque. But I think what they're going to do is just look at the scores. They're going to look how the hole is played and see if it's affected any way by the tree or something not being there.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anybody that's crying about this, Ryan. I mean, I think this is something that the players are happy about. So we'll see how it scores. If they're taking advantage of the 17th in the eyes of the guys at Augusta, then I think you'll see something put there to alter what the players are doing or make it difficult like the Eisenhower tree could do. So, but in the meantime, I think guys are just fine by not having it. We talked to Mike Weir, as we mentioned earlier, and he said that was a shot. He had to play around it. You know, the shorter hitters had to play around it. The longer hitters can bomb it up over the top, and no problem. But I think there's probably most of the field is just fine with that tree being gone.
Now, do you think it maybe changes the psychology coming down the stretch on the back nine on Sunday for the guys that have a chance to win, because this one big obstacle that used to be such a fundamental part of the next to last hole of this golf tournament is now gone? Do you think it makes a guy maybe be a little bit more aggressive if they need birdie to have a chance to win?
Well, the fairway's still not very wide, and you've got a lot of trees down both sides, and that primer or that next cut of rough that is not really rough. It's just a little bit longer, but it still affects the shots into the green. But I think you still look up there and it looks pretty narrow, and it will. But you don't see the big huge tree, so I think it might open it up a little bit, but still it's still a pretty narrow fairway.
And it's plenty long, so I don't think it allows guys to get down there any closer to the green by hitting driver. I think the big hitters were already hitting driver, and they're already as close as they're going to get.
Sounds good, fellas. And of course, one of the things that you immediately draw your eye to as soon as you get through the gates isn't 17. That's a little bit of a hike for most of the patrons to get to that part of the property. But one of the things you do notice right away is the merch shop, which probably everybody who's ever been to the Masters has had someone hit them up in some way for some merchandise at Augusta National. Did you guys take a stroll through? Yep. I have my Masters hats, 3 Masters shirts, and I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever. Did you guys see anything or purchase anything for yourself or somebody else that you really liked?
We may have made a couple of purchases. You have to, right? I mean, it's one of those things where, I remember when I was covering college football and I was covering some NBA, you didn't want to wear the team gear, right? It was frowned upon. But the golf's a little bit different because it's not that you're cheering for the team that you're wearing the gear. It's the golf course, and everybody loves it. It's the most coveted logo, I would say, in all of golf. Would you agree with me? And so there's only one place you can get it, and so when you're there, you grab what you can, and it's fun. We have a good time going shopping and seeing what's out there. And the limited edition Scotty Cameron putters and putter covers are stealing the show this year. Pretty amazing.
Also, Ryan, I don't know if you know this, but back up next to the 5th green, there is a new village area with a new shopping area. So a new merchandise area, a big structure. And so it's very comparable to what's down below at the main gates. So they've increased that opportunity to sell more merchandise, and they do a very, very good job of marketing.
These guys are going to make a whole lot of money this week, even if they're selling pimento cheese sandwiches for $1.50 and beer for $2.50. But let's kind of transition a little bit from the patron experience, at least outside the ropes, to the tournament experience inside the ropes for the 97 guys who are going to play this tournament. Obviously, we've talked about this, and the theme of the week is wide open. It's about as wide open of a championship you're ever going to find on Augusta National property. Who do you guys like this week? What's the vibe around guys that are in the field that might have a really good chance to win, even though maybe 50 guys have some kind of self-belief that they can pull this off on Sunday?
Well, I'll jump in here, Bob, and in listening to Phil Mickelson's press conference, I had a chance to sit in there, and everybody was asking that question: how many guys legitimately have a chance to win? And he said if it was playing Masters speed, is what he called it, what he calls Masters speed, then he thinks there's a half a dozen guys that could win. I mean, that's pretty limiting, right? But he said if it's not playing firm and fast, or what he deems to be Masters speed, and he didn't elaborate, then he said there's probably 30 guys, so half the field nearly, or at least a third of the field would have an opportunity to win. So I found that pretty interesting. In other words, the only thing he elaborated on is that when it's firm and when it's that fast, he said that the guys that don't have the experience will find themselves hitting the ball and having it end up in spots that they didn't anticipate. And so when that starts to happen, then guys all of a sudden think they hit a great shot in there and that they're going to have a chance for birdie, and all of a sudden they're thinking, how am I going to two-putt this thing for a bogey, or par? And I think that's what he's talking about. So I would be interested into who in his mind he has pegged on those 6 guys, but that was kind of his analysis, and I buy into that thing. I think it is wide open, but I think the conditions really could determine whether a first-timer could actually contend and break through for the first time in 35 years, or if it's going to be somebody like an Adam Scott potentially repeating, or a Phil Mickelson, who both seem to be really, really comfortable around here and past champions. Well,
the biggest thing with golf courses is the things that drive scores up are hard, firm, fast greens. So we're going to see great weather the rest of the week. We're not going to have any rain the rest of the week. It's going to be mid-70s and 80s on the weekend. And so because of that, the golf course will tend to get firmer. It will tend to get faster. And because of that, the scores may go up a little bit. We've always seen the scores grow here at Augusta when there's been a lot more moisture in the and the guys are able to throw darts and the whole make a lot more runs.
I get the sense that maybe there's a lot of folks that really want to see Sergio Garcia win this week. And I know that sounds maybe a little strange given that you guys are on the ground, but I tweeted out earlier in the week that I think he's my guy this week, and I was expecting a lot of riffraff coming back at me thinking I was crazy for predicting a guy to win his first major championship this week after this long. But it seemed that the response from a lot of people was they wanted him to win, and they fully expect him to do it. Is there kind of any sense on the ground that maybe this is Sergio's time?
Well, there is. There's a lot of talk about Sergio Garcia, and the thing about it is he's playing in his 16th Masters tournament, and I know that means something to you, Ryan, because you know your stats, and the guy that's the most attempts for a first-time winner was Mark O'Meara in '98, was 15. So Sergio surpassed that last year, so he would be making some history in his 16th attempt. His best finish was last year, 8th place, and you can see the trend. I like to look at trends when you come into Augusta because it shows the guys are starting to figure out the golf course and get a little more comfortable in this setting at Augusta National. So you look at 3 years ago, it was tied for 35th, then tied for 12th, and tied for 8th last year, his best finish. So he's trending in the right direction. The problem is he's 0 for 61 in major championships. He tends to lose the putter at critical times, and he admitted himself a few years ago that he's come to the conclusion that maybe he can't win a major championship, which is just amazing. I don't know how anyone would actually admit that, first of all, as a competitor, but second of all, say that to the public. I will say this, though. I think that the fact that Tiger Woods is not here this week, we know Sergio's been bit by the Tiger bug in the past. Obviously, he's made some comments that have caused him to have to apologize to Tiger just last year. And so I think not having Tiger here, I think Phil Mickelson benefits a little bit from that. And I think Sergio Garcia, maybe more than anyone, could benefit from that. So we'll see what happens. He certainly has shown the propensity to kind of melt down in critical situations. But the guy is a tremendous ball striker. There's no reason why, with his talent, and he's only 34 years old. Phil was on his way to 34 years old 10 years ago when he won his first major and broke through here at Augusta. So there's a lot of things that could say, yeah, maybe it is Sergio's time.
And to Brian's point about trends and that kind of thing, Adam Scott said in his press conference this week that 2010 was the real turning point for him, where he finally felt like he figured out the golf course, and then his scores started to improve, and also his finishes started to improve until he had the opportunity to win last year, in which he did.
I get the sense with a lot of the first-timers in the field, there's 24 of them, which is a record number that's basically 1/4 of the field, are guys who have never played this tournament before,
Yeah.
which is absolutely bizarre for the Masters tournament. And we talked about this just a little bit ago. Brian mentioned it, that there hasn't been a first-time winner here in 35 years, and that was Fuzzy Zoeller in '79. Is there, of this group of 24, 1, 2, or 3 guys that maybe stand out to you that could be the next Fuzzy and win this weekend?
Well, Fuzzy had a great opportunity where he ended up winning in a playoff, beat Tom Watson on the 11th hole to that pin that was in the back left corner. But the thing about it is, Jason Day just 2 or 3 years ago came really, really close. He birdies the final 2 holes of regulation play to tie Adam Scott, and then Charles Schwartzel went ripping right past those guys, birding 4 holes coming in. So we've had guys that have come really, really close as a couple of years ago. And I think, yeah, there are a couple of guys that are playing some extremely good golf right now that might have an opportunity to win, and one that lived here for over 2 or 3 years that played at Augusta State, and Patrick Reed.
Not going to happen, Bob. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. I know he thinks he's a top 5 guy. He probably thinks he's already a Masters champion, and hats off to him for the way he's played. But I don't see Patrick Reed. If it's going to be a first-timer, I think you got to go with a guy like Jimmy Walker. He's been around a little bit longer. He's got the 3 wins also, and he seems to be a little more comfortable in his skin. He's not cocky, and I think if you come into Augusta cocky in your first time, it has a way of humbling you very quickly. Jordan Spieth is another guy that I really like his approach. A lot of people are calling for Harris English as another first-timer in that group, but I think if it's going to be a first-timer, I dub Jimmy Walker or Jordan Spieth as my 2 guys that might have an opportunity to break through. But come on, it's only happened 3 times. 3 times. 34, 35 the first 2 years of the tournament, and then 79, and it was Fuzzy Zoeller. I mean, the guy, if it's going to be anyone, it's going to be Fuzzy, right? Who's as quirky and great as Fuzzy Zoeller is, right? I don't know if any of these guys, Jimmy or Jordan or any of these guys.
Very fair point, Brian. I think that but here's my thing about Patrick Reed. My thing on Reed is that he has the right combination of being naive enough and cocky enough to think he just might be able to do this. And maybe that's a dangerous combination, because if you listen to someone like Matthew Fitzpatrick, who's the reigning U.S. Amateur champion, he's just kind of happy to be here. And he's not that far off an age from Patrick Reed, who suddenly believes he can win every golf tournament he plays, which is insane to think, but you got to have that kind of belief, right? I mean, you got to believe on Sunday that you have a chance to win, that you don't back into it, right? So I think that...
No, totally. You got to believe. I get that. No, I think you're onto something for sure. So, but we'll see. How about Matt Jones? He chips in. He's this ultimate Cinderella story. He chips in a plan to beat Kuchar, and then he makes a hole-in-one today in the par 3. So, how about that guy?
No, so he has no chance, right?
Patrick Reed. The thing about Patrick Reed is, okay, here's a guy that back-to-back national championships at Augusta State. Okay, never lost a match play event in the championship. All right. Then he goes out on the PGA Tour, decides he's going to Monday qualify. He Monday qualifies 8 times and makes the cut 6 times. He keeps working his way along. He beats Jordan Spieth last year at Greensboro. Then he turns around and he wins a couple more times this year, winning at the Humana and winning a World Golf Championship against a field very similar to what you're seeing here this week. He's played this golf course before. He's lived here. He's lived here for the last couple of years. He's played this golf course a lot when he was a team member at Augusta State. I think he just has a little bit more comfortable feelings here than a lot of people are letting on.
Okay, yeah. Horton Smith.
Well, we could talk all day about the guys who have a chance to win.
Zeller and Patrick
Reed.
Really?
There you go.
Patrick Reed. Patrick effing Reed.
Let's move on and talk to somebody let's talk about somebody that might actually win this thing.
Jason Day.
Now that guy's someone I'll talk about.
Jason Day is a hot pick, but I want to get the opposite view since either by Phil's metric there's 30 guys who could win. By our metric it's probably closer to 50 guys who could win. So that means there are 40 to 50 guys who have no freaking shot. So
right.
Of the guys that maybe, non-Ben Crenshaw, Craig Stadler division, guys who are in their 30s and 40s in their prime, of those guys, which kind of 2 or 3 stand out to you as either they're a popular pick that you think has no shot, or they're just kind of happy to be here?
Lee Westwood, I think, has no shot.
Oh, come on!
All right.
I agree with him, Ryan.
What? Oh, no! What's wrong with Lee Westwood? He can't chip or putt, but he's a great golfer.
Hey, he's
chip or putt here, you can't make it.
He's trending in the right direction, T8, T3 in the last 2 years, but that seems to be where he lives. He's had some opportunities. He's either going to be a Darren Clark and come out and win late in his career, or he's going to be a Colin Montgomery and never get it done, and I'm leaning towards the latter.
Oh, that is just a graveyard of disappointment there.
Yeah, stab in the heart.
And Bob, if you're also agreeing on Lee Westwood, give me another guy who you're thinking has absolutely no chance.
Another guy I think that has absolutely no chance. Although I would like to say he would, because I really like the guy, but I just don't think he plays enough golf anymore, and I'm thinking Steve Stricker. He hasn't knocked the rust off. He's coming in here fresh. Yeah, he agreed, but it's not working out the same way it did last year. Last year, every time he played extremely well. And we haven't seen him a lot, and I just don't think he's going to have an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I can't agree more. I think Steve Stricker is that semi-retirement model worked last year, and it became really popular this year. But I think that seeing how it's played out for Stricker this year might turn a couple of guys off to the model going forward, just thinking that it hasn't worked out so well in 14, year 2 of trying to be a semi-retired golf pro. So maybe there's some truth to that, or maybe we get a surprise this week and Steve Stricker's the Masters champion. But I honestly wouldn't be all that surprised at this point because it seems like anybody who wants to win a golf tournament does it from behind and does it when you least suspect it. So are we looking at trying to transition to Sunday afternoon a win from a guy who comes from ahead or makes a great back 9 run? I mean, it's the 10-year anniversary of Phil playing the final 7 holes in 5 under par to win his first Masters title. Are we going to see something like that on Sunday, do you think? Or is this going to continue the trend of the last couple of years of the year of the choke, and guys are kind of backing into major championships a little bit?
Boy, it's the year of backing into, isn't it? It seems like everybody's backing into wins right now. The guys that are supposed to win are absolutely gagging down the stretch. We've seen it tournament after tournament this year. So, yeah, that would be the theme. I would expect that would happen. And if that's the case, then anybody could win it. But I think things change. It's major championship season now. It's Augusta National. It's the Masters. It's been played 77 times. This is the 78th playing. And guys don't tend to back into things. I mean, Kenny Perry, the guy would have loved to have backed into that thing. All he needed was one par on 17 or 18, the poor guy. I mean, you just look at it, and it's a heartbreaker. This is a heartbreaker tournament. There's guys that play great golf. Ernie Els comes to mind 10 years ago. I mean, he stood on that putting green thinking, what else could I have done? And Phil, leaps up in the air after making his putt, and Ernie just picks up his golf ball and goes away. And so I really think somebody goes out and wins this thing. Phil Mickelson did lend another cool thing when he said the reason why the guys in the back on the last groups do so well is because they hit the back nine late in the evening, 5 o'clock on, and he thinks that there's less wind in the evening than there is in the middle of the day, and so 12 plays a little easier, 11, 12, 13, and that's a big deal. So I do think you're going to see it coming down to the last group. The cream definitely tends to rise to the top in this one, and so that's where I think a lot of guys have a chance. I really think you're going to see Adam Scott in there again, Jason Day, Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy. I think those are your guys. I think you go to the big hitters when it boils right down to it, I guess.
Well, and the other unique thing about Augusta is the back nine. You hear all the roars and cheers, and there were quite a few years where we didn't hear those. When Zach Johnson won, Trevor Immelman, those guys, and a lot of people said, what's happening with this golf course? We want to see the roars and cheers. We want to see the 32s and 31s on the back nine. And when a guy goes out there and is able to put that together on the back nine when he's in one of the final two groups, guess what? That guy's going to come roaring from behind and win this golf tournament.
All right, we're going to put it on the line here. If you had to go to the betting window in Las Vegas or for entertainment purposes only, or Calcutta, depending on where you are and what you're willing to wager, if you have to pick one guy, Brian and Bob, who's your guy and why to win?
All right, Bob, I'll let you go first.
You want me to go first? I'm thinking of two guys, but I'll throw out Jason Day. I already said his name just a few minutes ago. Here's a guy that has only played here 3 times. He withdrew once because he had a problem with his foot, but both times otherwise that he's finished 72 holes, he's had a second and a third. Last year he had an opportunity to win the golf tournament, but bogeyed the 16th and 17th holes, and that cost him his chance to win. And then the other time, Charles Schwartzel just came ripping from behind with 4 birdies in a row. But I think Jason Day, even though he hasn't played since he won the WGC Accenture match play, I still think that he's got a phenomenal opportunity and he's ready to go.
I love Jason Day. His record speaks for itself. He's coming off of a win at match play. But here's where I think I can make the best argument. If you're asking me to pick one guy and why, the best argument I can make is Phil Mickelson. The year is 2014. He's done it every 4 years since he won his second one. It's 04, 06, 10. It's 14. It's that time, right? It's time for him to go out there and win. It's a 10-year anniversary of his first win. Tiger's not in the picture. Yeah, he hasn't won this year, which he likes to win, but guess what? The last time he didn't have a win coming into the Masters, that's right, 2010 when he went on to win. So when you start talking about some cases that you can make, I think of all the guys that you talk about cocky, confident, and have the game to do it, it's Phil Mickelson. No one's won as many green jackets in the last decade as Lefty has, and I think he's relishing the chance. He's the top dog. There's no question, the undisputable 46 wins, 3 Masters, a couple other majors, the reigning Open champion. I think he is the guy to beat. He's the top dog around here without Tiger Woods, and I think that unless he just doesn't show up to compete, I think he's the guy you got to knock off.
BT, I agree with you completely. I think Phil's the guy. As I heard you talk and you made all the sense in the world, I thought Patrick Reed is the poor man's Phil Mickelson 20 years ago. That's kind of how I think of Patrick Reed. And I think Patrick Reed would love to grow up to be Phil Mickelson and have his resume someday. I'm going to go with Sergio Garcia. I know it sounds a little crazy. I still think it's his time. He's playing some great golf. Brian said he's trending upward in this tournament, and he is. He's at his best finish in his Masters career this year, and cannot believe he's been playing this thing 15 times. It'll be the 16th time tomorrow. But I think it's Sergio's time, and if I'm wrong, then the worst case scenario is he's, 0 for 47 or something like that in the major
0 for 62. If he,
Whoa!
62 if he misses. Hey, listen, Ryan, I would be right there clapping. I would stand up and applaud for Sergio Garcia. It would be great for golf. I hope he wins this week. I think it would be awesome. But I interviewed him today, and I sat there and I asked him a question, do you feel good about your game? Do you feel comfortable? And I've never heard a guy that's just unwilling to give himself any amount of credit, and I don't think it's just being humble. I really think he struggles with the belief that he could actually break through and win a major championship. I love the guy. I hope he wins. I think he'd be great for golf. He's only 34 years old. He's so talented.
Yeah.
How can he not win a major? But we'll see.
We'll see, and we got 4 great days to figure out who's going to be the Masters champion for 2014. Bob Casper, Brian Taylor from Real Golf Radio. Thanks, guys, so much. We'll hear from you this weekend. Let's get a plug-in for the show, and what do you guys have planned for the weekend?
Well, it should be good. We had a chance to visit with the Stocktons today, Bob. That was always a treat. If you want to know about putting, you talk to Dave and Dave Jr., and they were awesome. We're going to catch up with Johnny Miller tomorrow. A great story about your dad this week. We'll hear from Jim McCabe on the show, and then sound from the players. It should be tremendous.
Well, and the thing about the Stocktons, they have 9 guys that they've worked with going into this Masters.
Wow.
So they've got a nice stable of players. So that'll be fun to hear from them.
All right, fellas, well, thanks so much for the time. We'll be listening on the radio this week. Enjoy the Masters. I'm extremely jealous this year there, and I'm not. It's been 3 long years since the trip to Augusta National, and one is definitely in order next year. So I hope you guys enjoyed our hangout here, our Real Masters preview, and we'll give it another try maybe later on in the week, and we'll see how things unfold over the first 2 rounds, and hopefully get you ready for the weekend again here in Google Hangouts on air. So thanks very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time down the line.